There followed a swimming gala. And now we surreptitiously slide into the 1950s and a sunny day at the sea bathing lake for the Southport English Rose Contest of 1956. And the Southport Rosebud Contest. This was the ornate wooden Pier Pavilion Theatre, later called the Casino, at the Pier entrance, built in 1902 and demolished in 1969. At the pier head, Tom's Tea House was the scene of daredevil diving stunts by Professor Powsey, Professor Osborne and other notorieties. This long wooden colonnaded shelter fronted Pleasureland Fairground when it opened in 1922. Behind it is Maxim's flying machine, which we shall see later. There was a rickety wooden roller coaster on which trains moved sufficiently slowly for the passengers to retain their hats. You could get airborne on Maxim's flying machine, built in 1906, which is more than its designer, Hiram Maxim, could do in his earlier flying machine, a steam biplane of 1894. Pleasureland in the 1930s. The water chute, together with the flying machine, came from the original fairground site around the south end of the marine lake. The trains on the roller coaster were getting a move on in the 1930s, and there were fewer hats. The LMR is not the London Midland region, but the Lakeside Miniature Railway, originally Llewellyn's Miniature Railway, built in 1911, the oldest 15-inch gauge railway in Britain. The 3/4-mile line linked the Mums and Dads Fairground at Pleasureland and the Kiddies Fairground at Peter Pan's Playground. The locomotives were originally steam. By the 1970s, the railway had 3 steam-outline diesel-electric locomotives dating from 1948, so it was early in embracing the new mode of traction for railways. The Princess Anne, a diesel mechanical locomotive, arrived in 1971. Today, the line rosters the 4 diesels and 1 steam locomotive. Some of the passenger stock is from Roland Emmett's famous Far Tottering and Oyster Creek Railway at Battersea Park, built for the 1951 Festival of Britain. Here, the railway's owner, John Spencer, with the Princess Anne at the outer terminus. Overhead rumbles the Pier train. Southport's is one of only 5 piers in Britain to retain its railway. There have been, in succession, 7 trains on Southport Pier over the last 130 years, and 4 forms of traction: manpower, cable, electric and diesel. The first train in 1863 was 1 car pushed by a member of the Pier staff. The Pier tramway of 1865 was the first cable tramway in the world, 8 years before San Francisco. The cable tram did the trip along the 3/4-mile pier in 3 minutes. The Silver Bell diesel train of the period 1953 to 1979 took 5 minutes. Blackpool-style single-deck trams worked the electric era from 1937 to 1950 with third-rail pickup. Centrepiece of the seafront attractions is the Marine Lake, opened in 1891 and seen here first in the 1930s. Then in the 1950s, not forgetting the model yacht pond. This was the railway through the land of the little people, the model village in Rotten Row, opened in 1957 and cleared in 1987 for a shopping development that was never completed and taken down again. The site is now Safeway's supermarket car park. Our 50s film of the seafront attractions continues with pleasure flights from Birkdale Sands North Aerodrome, now the West End Park and Ride car park. After the war, Southport Corporation bought some ex-Army Bedford lorries and converted them to buses to trundle pleasure trippers along the water's edge between Southport Pier and Ainsdale Lido. This and the ex-Army ducks were the nearest thing Southport could offer in lieu of the traditional seaside boat trips in this wet desert that is half sand and half water. For the children, there were ponies as well as the traditional donkeys. There was sand in abundance. And Peter Pan's playground. Grandma and Grandpa took their ease in deck chairs in the sunken gardens at the Floral Hall. The Floral Hall was extended in the winter of 1972-73 with the construction of the Southport Theatre, which opened in May '73 with a concert by Marlene Dietrich. Other famous names appearing at the theatre in the 1970s and 80s were Frankie Vaughan, Frankie Lane, Perry Como, Jack Jones, Tommy Steele, Des O'Connor, Tom O'Connor, Les Dawson, Little and Large, and the one and only Ken Dodd, who commuted from Knotty Ash to do 2 seasons and several one-night stands at Southport. Tommy Trafford played Dame in pantomime at the Floral Hall and Southport Theatre for 20 years. One of the most famous racehorses of all time, Red Rum, born in Ireland in 1965 and trained by Ginger McCain on Southport Sands, was a great ambassador for the town. Red Rum, who died in October 1995 and is buried at Aintree Racecourse, won the Grand National 3 times and came second twice in the 5 years from 1973 to 1977 and holds the record time for the course to this day. Eventually, Southport honoured the legendary horse with the freedom of the town. Today, Southport still offers a wide variety of attractions, and visitors come here to enjoy activities that can be relaxing or exhausting or simply to be entertained. Changing social attitudes and improved road and rail connections have resulted in many British seaside towns finding that the majority of visitors are just day trippers. Southport, however, has been successful in retaining its fair share of longer stay holidaymakers. It's also enjoying an expanding conference trade with excellent facilities in venues as diverse as Meals Hall, Southport Theatre and local hotels. What's more, Southport is recognised as the floral capital of the Northwest, having come top in the city section of the 1994 Britain in Bloom Award. It always will be a shopper's paradise in the conservation area of Lord Street, with its outstanding architecture from the Victorian era and the early part of the 20th century. It's a place with traditional values which will continue to be maintained. Sadly, some of the old has gone, but investment is forthcoming to help conserve the best of the past, whilst laying down the foundations for a flourishing future.